Well, I think this is like the 16th or 17th state of play we've done. But
Mm.
we've been trying to do this for a little while, but we've been so busy watching films, Rupert. You don't play games anymore because you said, and I quote, they're for stupid little kids.
Yeah.
So, stupid kid, and you haven't done anything.
I'm hoping actually that we can just use that time to spend the entire episode just talking about the back catalogue of Dream Theater.
Dream Theater. Did they do Operation Mindcrime?
Oh, they did one called some really convoluted title called what was it, Metropolis or something like that, and
Virtuosity of Glass or something.
Yeah, it was weird. I did actually listen to their like most lauded album, and I thought it was technically it was very competent, but then they'd have these crushing moments of just real like mawkish sentimentality in the middle. Suddenly it would all break down, and it would just be like really, really like it would suddenly turn into an episode of One Tree Hill or something. It was amazing. I just thought, wow, that is a juxtaposition.
I haven't listened to well, I've never listened to Dream Theater, but I had a friend who was a lot older than me who used to listen to them, and I remember him putting on like Operation Mindcrime, and it would this is going back to when I was like 15 or 16, but it would have like you say, kind of really like sort of operatic overtones, and then all of a sudden it would just go into these like really emotive, like furrowed brow guitar bends, like real slow half-speed drums, and you think this is just really
Sorry, Brett. The actual full title of the album was Metropolis Part 2: Scenes from a Memory. So there you go.
Oh my God. Was that before or after Operation Mindcrime?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was my one. That was my one moment. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we're probably not going to spend our time talking about that, I would guess.
We just did a couple of minutes on it. I mean,
we did, didn't we? Could stretch it out for another 58.
Like the album.
One track.
So yeah, I mean, I've got, because we haven't done this for a while, we've been focusing on the Kino Kingdom stuff. I've sort of built up a list of 12 games, but obviously a few of them are indie games, which will only take a few minutes to kind of cover off.
Yeah.
And a few of them are obviously AAA titles like Mad Experiments Escape Room.
Yes.
It is good, as we'll discuss at length. There's a new episode of that, by the way. This a free episode this month, so you know what we have to do.
Yeah, we're going to be doing that.
So the ones I've got are The Last Sky, What the Golf, TikTok, A Tale for Two, Mad Experiments Escape Room, Red Aces, Wings of the Sky, Liberated, Isle of Spirits, Crackdown 3, Red Dead Redemption 2 Online, Payday 2, Rage 2, and Kingdom Come Deliverance Revisited.
Yeah, I've played a few of them, so hopefully I better chime in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I've only got a handful myself, so I'm just going to be talking a little bit about Animal Crossing, Streets of Rage 4, Bomb Chicken, Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom, and Wild Guns.
Nice. That's a good mix. That is a good mix.
Up to date, all AAA titles.
Well, what I've done here, the first kind of three, I can just sort of riffle through because they're kind of ones you aren't familiar with, I don't think, and that would bring us more in line because Mad Experiments we've both played.
Yes. Okay, good.
So I'll quickly smash through these. So the Last Sky is a game we got through Games Freezer, the mighty GF, and I was intrigued in it because we've got a huge list of PC games, and I don't tend to review PC games because I've had trouble in the past with my PC's knocking on a bit now, and I hate getting a game, installing it, and then of course you're trying to review it, and it's not running properly or as well as it could, so you kind of So I tend to avoid them, but this one was an indie game that clearly would run on my PC. So it's a sort of, I wouldn't say experimental. It's more of like, you play games that are sort of like around an hour long or less, and they almost feel more like prototypes of a finished concept. Well, this is kind of one of those, which it's presented as sort of an old man in like a really sad room, and you basically go around the room clicking on things and like having flashbacks to memories of when his wife was alive. But every now and again it's interspersed with these kind of fantastical brief sort of 2D platforming sections where you sort of you're a younger version of yourself floating through collecting orbs that represent memories and stuff. And although it's only about 45 minutes long, it does a bit of point and click in, a bit of the two-dimensional platforming. It's got quite a nice little story about nostalgia and like how dangerous to kind of hold on to these memories and not move forward. And it crams a lot into like 45 minutes. But it's one of those things that it's hard. I don't know how much it is, but you think it's an interesting little thing to play. But I'd be more interested if all of those things were fleshed out into a fuller game. But it's a really nice. I think it's the developers. I haven't got the notes here in front of me, but the developers' first game, and it is pretty nicely put together.
Sounds like
interesting.
It sounds like Michael Haneke's Amour in game form. It's an old man doddering around his apartment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did Michael Haneke? Did he also do Funny Games?
Funny Games. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the American remake, weirdly.
Tim Roth, obviously.
Yeah.
Tim Roth.
Yeah, that was a dark film. In fact, I don't think any of his films have really been knee slappers, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I'm not really familiar with his oeuvre beyond Funny Games, so.
Yeah.
I
watched them more at the cinema, and how sad that was. It's just essentially a man going around just watching his wife die, essentially.
Oh. That's okay. Was it a Christmas Eve showing?
Yeah. It's one for the kids.
So yeah, that was the last guy. Really cool little sort of I want to say experimental game. Yeah. It's like a little vignette sort of thing.
Yeah.
What the Golf was a more fully fledged game, and obviously I have a rule wherever the word golf pops up because I do like golf. But I also kind of like taking the piss out of golf because although I play it myself, I can see how other people would look at it and think, "Wow, that is boring." So I quite like games that kind of poke fun at it. And What the Golf was an example of that because while it ostensibly is a golf game, it's more of like a kind of WarioWare based around with a more sort of physical bent as opposed to tiny mini games. They are there's about 100 or 150 levels in there, and they're just kind of really wacky. Everyone is you've got to touch the flag stick with an item, and it starts off being a ball, then it's the club, then it's you hurtling your actual golf around these sort of simple, almost sort of mini golf-esque maps, and then it just completely takes off, and you're just throwing houses around and trying to get a vase through a hurricane and exploding barrels and up to the green, and it is fun. It was one of those games that you think I'll just play it for like 15-20 minutes serious like, and then when I've got a bit more time I'll come back to it. Boom, 5 hours later I'd 80% in the entire game. So I think I mentioned it in our WhatsApp group when your brother really enjoyed it as well, which is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a fun. It's effectively a collection of mini games, but it's got a really good sense of humor about itself, and it doesn't feel like zany for the sake of it because the actual like physics and the mechanics of the game and the presentation is really top notch, so it doesn't feel cheap.
Yeah, there's something about golf games that lends itself to kind of wackiness somehow in a way that other sports don't generally. Like there aren't as many like wacky kind of football games or something, stuff like that. I don't know. There's something about golf which really lends itself. And there's a good history of them.
It's sort of stayed the way the classic view of golf is like a load of rich white men spending a fortune on things. It's just this kind of really elitist club.
Yeah, so, and you kind of your memory of watching golf as a kid is just endlessly looking at shots of the sky and not being able to see the ball properly. And that's so yeah. To bring it out of that is quite.
I got to say, obviously now in 4K, and obviously some of the equipment they use on TV when you take a shot and they'll just instantly come back with all this data. It is genuinely impressive now. But yeah, in like the late 80s, early 90s, when you're watching on like terrestrial TV, and you think how is the cameraman looking at that ball?
It could be anywhere. I know. It could be. It could just be a shot of the sky. It's like how have they managed to follow that on a really overcast day in Scotland?
Banging down with rain. Oh, there he is. Yeah, he's hitting that. I can tell just by the tone of his swing. That's 94 miles an hour swing. That is. Yeah, I can see that. That's going to go 215 yards slightly to the left before it's even hit the floor. I can tell you that. Yeah, it is ridiculous. But yeah, what the golf is a quite a fun. It's not really about golf, but it's got a good sensory about itself. It's really well presented, and
Yeah.
it's for like a kind of zany kind of collection of like little mini games. It's quite addictive because what it does is you do a hole and say you've got to get the ball into the hole, and it's like you do that and you pass the level and you can move on through the game.
Mm.
But you can do the same hole three times, and each time it's effectively 3-in-1. Like it'll just completely change the premise,
Oh,
um,
really?
and then you'll have to do it in like a certain amount of strokes, or then you'll have to do it, and then instead of being a ball, you'll just be like a truck, and you can't slow down, and you have to kind of turn around these like really dodgy corners while things are exploding around you, or someone's throwing hot dogs at you or something. And it's effectively like a totally different thing, but it's still classed as the same hole. And of course, you kind of get you do one, you get like a little tick, so you can move on to the next part of the game, because there is actually like a game over world. You do it twice and you get par, and if you do it a third time, you get a crown, and that's how you 100%. So there's effectively like 300 levels in there, and I got to
I love games where you're trying to get 100% on
yes,
like little tweaked versions of the same thing.
yeah,
I'm thinking of what's it called? Door Kickers has that appeal as well,
oh
where
my
it's like,
god,
yeah, I could stick with just 2 ticks, but I might go for the third, you know.
yeah. Well, I fully intend one day for us to all get together, well, us to get together and just smash through that, because
Absolutely.
I really, really want to, especially with the lockdown. It's like there's so many games piling up that I think I really want to play this with a group of people,
Yes.
But yeah, what the golf is, yeah, it's a good longevity. You got about like I'd say I've been playing it for 5 or 6 hours, and I think I'm like 85%. Again, I finished it and just went back to the start, and because my skill level had upped as I played the game, I went
Yeah.
back and did another, few holes. So I reckon
That's a
it's
sign
about
of a
eight.
good game, I think, where you go back to the start. There's a rare games where you just go straight back to the start with your newfound kind of ability and just give it another go to have a new experience.
Yes,
I love that. Do
it's
love it.
it's one of those games that I think, will I ever? It's so small, and you think, will I ever uninstall it from my Switch, or will I always be there? Just
It's
one little
perennial.
sneaky 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. So
What would you
what the golf?
say is your favorite legit golf game, as in like golf simulation?
That's a bloody good question, Rupert. For years, it was PGA 2 on the Mega Drive, PGA Tour 2.
Actually,
And it still is really, really playable. Turf Masters for an arcade game, because Neo Geo Turf Masters is just untouchable in just how swift and accessible it is. And I would say I think it's called Lynx 2004 on the original Xbox.
Mm.
I picked that up for like 50p in a car boot sale, and I put it in, and I could not believe how good it was, because it was the first console version, and sadly the final version of the Lynx games, which had been released
Mm.
on PC for like 10
Yeah,
years. But
and the Amiga. Don't forget that.
oh, was it really?
Yeah, the
It,
digitized graphics in that were limited.
it is a solid, rock solid 60 frames a second. The loading times are instantaneous, and it's so smooth and so arcadey, but with like
Nice.
the depth of a. But then saying that, the modern games, I think it's the Golf Club 2, and it's now they've got the license from EA, the new Golf Club 3/PGA. They're so accurate now, but then they are much more. Apparently, they were getting like middling reviews, because they were saying this is amazing for golfers, but it's so hips deep that you can't, as a casual player, really enjoy it, because you
Mm.
have to have like a working knowledge of the intricacies of golf. So
Yes.
I could literally do an episode on this. I play so many golf games. I tell you, one of the worst golf games is Disney Golf on the PS2.
Get
It's
out. Can't be.
it's not fun. It's not fun, and it's really, really tough. And it
Mm.
doesn't, like when you play a golf game, you pick it up, and it like roughly sets up your shot for you, kind
Yeah.
of aims at the flag, gives you none of that in Disney Golf. You just always face around in direction, like with like a putter and you're like, what? And then it doesn't tell you like where the wind's going, and the mechanics to like hit the ball are really awkward.
To
And
be fair, but I mean, given the title, it sounds like a pro simulation. So I don't know why it would be simple.
well, yeah, you might think it's like Disney Golf is in Disneyland, but it's actually Bill Disney, who was a pro golfer in the 70s. So yeah, that would be my answer for that. And final one before we kind of get back into bed with each other and start
Before we spread our wings.
and fly into the night, is TikTok: A Tale for Two, which was a game, tellingly, I had kicking around for a while, because again I got it sent for review, and it was this really cool idea of a kind of game of two halves where you play one, player two. You can play across multiple devices like Android, iOS, PC, Mac, whatever, and you choose player one or player two, but you don't sync up. It doesn't play online. You just need another person because you both have halves of a puzzle, which is a really neat idea. And it's really cool, but it's kind of so basic. So it's like the first puzzle is there's like an alarm clock, and you need to set the right time on it to sort of move on. And one of you has like a newspaper clip, and the other one has another newspaper clip, and you kind of work together to get the information you need. And it's a really cool idea, but it always feels like there could be a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like you're playing it, and I remember playing it with Faye, and I had it on my phone, and she had it on the Switch, and it's clearly a game designed for mobiles because there are so many moments in it when you need to like rotate a crank or like swipe the screen to turn a page, and it's just slightly more cumbersome on a console. So
surely the Switch has got touchscreen controls. Like
we played it docked because obviously she had a nice big screen,
okay.
I faced away from the screens. I couldn't, because otherwise I could just look up at the screen and say, all right, I know what to do now. The sort of fun in it is trying to communicate to each other what's happening.
Yes.
And it's really good. It's a really, really neat idea. But whilst I enjoyed it, I was never like in the mood for it. So when I eventually got back and played it a lot more, I did enjoy it. But I was thinking, I wish there was like the overarching story had a bit more depth, or that it was a bit more focused. It felt a bit like, oh, look, there's a puzzle. You've got to get a train from A to B, but the other person's got to tell you kind of where to go. And you think, oh, I'd like there to be a bit more to this. And especially after playing the next game, which we'll talk about now, Mad Experiments Escape Room, you see the real genius of working together.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to. I've talked for a while, so I don't know if you want to kick us off.
Mad Experiments Escape Room. So it's early access, I guess.
Yes.
And so it's first-person perspective, online cooperative puzzle game, really. So you start off in a room. You're in a kind of mansion, and you're going around. You basically have to. It's very small actual space that you're operating in, but you're basically trying to work out from clues how to advance, how to get out of the room, really, like an escape room. And so, but the clues are kind of like you might find them in books, or you might find them kind of etched on the side of furniture or whatever, and they're quite cryptic. Well, they start off quite simple, but then they get very cryptic. And yeah, you have to do various things like douse a fire with water. You have to connect up these electricity pylon things by setting them in the right order and stuff. And it's really cool. It's really good. I mean, it's very brief because it's just one room at the moment. But as you say, I think there's a new one coming out this month. And yeah, we had a good time with it because we just had voice chat and we were just working through. And there were several points at which we were utterly stuck and just thinking, oh, come on. And then genuinely, like, as soon as we thought a slightly different way about it, we got the solution. It must be doing something right if it's capable of doing that, like making you get stuck in quite a major way. So we were stuck for a good, because you've got a kind of hour time limit, I think.
You can turn it off, I think, the time. I think there's a scoreboard, so you can turn on the time limit, which is the normal way of having an hour, like in a normal escape room, or you can turn it off and do it at your leisure, sort of thing. And I think it's up to 8 players as well.
That'd be baffling, yeah. So but yeah, I thought it was really good. Like,
key thing. There were a few, because it's early access. There were a few glitches. Like there was one puzzle part where, obviously, we're in the same space online, and it was like you said. Oh, I think you said the fire's gone out, and I was like, no, it's still on my screen. It's still there. Yeah, which was a bit awkward. But there were tiny glitches, and I think it never felt unfair, it was never, when we did find out the answer to a puzzle, it was never like, oh, come on. It was always just kind of, oh, that's cool. And then you move on.
Yeah. And it's so kind of like quick that any progress you make, once you do realize it, if you know everything that needs to be done, you can do it in like 5-10 minutes. So once you've worked it out, it's not onerous to go back and do it again next time, sort of thing. So it
Yeah,
is quite good
well,
for like
we did.
speed
We
run
ran
and
out of
stuff.
time, didn't we? And we
Yeah,
were quite far into it, and then we started again. And of course, within 5-10 minutes, we were up to where we were,
exactly.
and then you can just say, right, well, now we've got like 45 minutes to sort this out.
Yes. So that was very good. I mean, I guess can it be played? I guess it can be played in single player.
Yeah, there's no reason why it
Yeah,
wouldn't be played single
I
player. I
think
mean,
it's
this.
what I think my patience for it wouldn't be as great in single player, to be honest. I don't think I'd get stuck and hang around for that long in single player. But when there's someone else there, it's like you really want to work together to try and like, because you're just desperate to activate some part of your brain which is going to actually get on the same wavelength as the developer. So who's obviously very clever in the way that they've found a balance between in the difficulty level. So yeah, I was very impressed with that.
I actually got a really nice email because we did it. Obviously, you helped me out for the review for Games Freezer, and then when the review went up like a week or two later, or whatever, I had a really nice email from him just saying, "Oh, thanks for playing it," and let me know there was another episode coming out. And he just seems like a really cool guy. He's really on like the Steam forums. He's really helpful with everything, and really still, even after the release, well, as it's coming up to like the full version, really hands on with everything.
Right.
So it makes me want to. It's one of those things that I'll clearly now just, because they're quite unique games. Because I've played a few escape room games. There are a load for about 40 pence each on the Switch, and they are dreadful.
Really?
Absolutely, just awfully unfinished and dreadful. So it's a real breath of fresh air to play one that is effectively a digital version of an escape room, which is something you think would really easily slot into a game world anyway, because it's just a series of puzzles.
Yes, but also, of course, it shows that it does require like a smart person to actually design it in the first place, I guess.
Yeah,
because you can. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, anyone can make an escape room game out of kind of like Unreal Engine 4 and some reused assets or whatever, but that's not really where the skill is it?
No,
the skill
it's
is
all about like
balance.
pacing and much more focus on the puzzles themselves. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
And and it had quite a nice kind of creepy atmosphere. It reminded me slightly of what is that game, Sexy Brutale. In the way that it's kind of this
Victorian decor,
ancient house, and your characters are represented by these like floating masks. It's quite odd,
which is quite funny. Yeah, quite dark and all. And also the music was so reminiscent of the Batman theme from Tim Burton.
Oh yeah, wasn't it?
But I had no problem with that because again, it'll just
Absolutely
kind of fit
fine.
nicely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. That's recommended, definitely.
Definitely, and it just feels like a bit of a niche experience as well. It's a little bit different to
niche and nice.
My two dogs.
Really, it's my two daughters.
So have you got I've still got a few kicking around, but if you want to smash through one of yours.
Yeah, I'll just round off Animal Crossing because I was wondering. I think last time I was wondering whether I'd still be playing it by this point.
Yes.
I'm not still playing it at this point, but I would say that I got good. I'd say that I just about got value out of it, and although weirdly, even though it's definitely like cemented in my mind the fact that these games aren't for me, I did enjoy it for what it was, because I think it's my favorite of those sorts of like life sim type games, because it just constantly feeds you these kind of little mini rewards all the way through, and it does give you a fair amount of guidance, which is something that Stardew Valley really did not. And but I've realized that kind of the real kind of meat of the game, of those sorts of games, that very kind of slow, gradual building up of your world, isn't really enough to hold my attention. And it's like I need those constant like appeals to my attention in the early game to keep me interested. And of course, naturally, they fade after a while. Once, because it's essentially a very long tutorial, and then after a while, it's just sort of pretty much like, right, you are pretty much on your own now, sort of thing, and that's fine. But at that point, that's where my attention starts to wane a little bit. Like I'm not invested enough to care whether I have like a camp bed in my house or like a four-poster bed. Like it doesn't make a difference to me. And I noticed that like I had all these new options, all these different like furniture items I could get, which are all matching up and stuff. And I thought, well, it doesn't really make any difference to me though, because no one's ever going to see this. I suppose unless someone wanted to visit my island or whatever. But
Yeah.
it just like I'm really the only person who's going to see this, and it is kind of cute in its own way. The fact that I've just got a camp bed and like a box in the corner sort of thing and some dinosaur bones, and that's fine. Like I didn't feel the need to decorate and create this whole town, because you see online these amazing things that people have created, but I'm just wondering how long did that take and how much grinding.
Well, this is for me. I mean, I actually have a really nice time because Faye plays it. But the way I tend to play games is, yes, there are certain games that I will spend, say, upwards of, I don't know, upwards of say 20 to 30 hours in. But I have there's a switch in my brain that gets flicked whenever there's a game that has no ending. Like I've never been a fan of games like The Sims or Sim City or like Animal, because to me it's like, well, if there's no, if there's just this endless journey, like eventually it strikes me like online games, which is why I don't play like competitive shooters, because what'll happen is you kind of play it and then eventually you just kind of get bored and stop, and it's like I don't find that inherently satisfying. But I think though, if you're someone who doesn't play lots and lots of games, if you're someone who like does move from one to the next, and like just really stay at them, then it is perfectly designed for that. It's almost like it'll tie into what I'm going to talk about next, actually, because it's almost like a relaxation thing. You know, it's so kind of hypnotic, and so and also what I really like about Animal Crossing is the culture of community that it creates. Because Faye was telling me that there are people who go online and have their own like Twitter channel set up, and they help each other and and it just all seems to be this really friendly atmosphere.
It's unbelievably wholesome.
Because Faye has never because Faye has never played like she's never kind of played a game where you'll get like stuck in an RPG or whatever, and you're like, I don't know what to do. She didn't really realize that there were like loads of helpful people online. You can go on there and they say, oh, if you do this, like wikis for games sort of thing.
Yeah.
So when she was delving into that, she was like, oh, I didn't realize you could, like, you know, she was telling me about like the money trees. Like when you see light out the ground, she didn't think, oh, if I take the money out this day and then put more in, it turns into a tree and you get 3 times as much, blah blah blah. And it's like this constant sense of community and discovery that I think is just really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think my problem is that I don't have the attention span for, I don't know, I'm someone who likes to play a game to death over quite a short period of time. Like if any game is over like 3 hours, then I start getting bored already, and I have to, and I find myself really rushing.
You really struggled with Elite, didn't you?
But I know what you mean about like perennial games, like without an ending. Like it almost makes you feel a little bit anxious because
you're like waiting for the moment you'll get bored of it. You're like, and the enjoyment of it, like it's always like in the back of my mind. It's like, do I want to play it? I mean, especially because there's so many other games I could be playing. It's like, am I just passing time? Am I enjoying this?
I can't. It's an internal conundrum.
Yeah, and, I think that's another one of. I think that was after Operation Mindcrime, actually.
So I would say, like, it's the closest I've come to really getting on board with one of these games, but I think it's also it's the pinnacle, but also the ending for me. For those
if this is like the best example of the one you enjoyed the most, and I still didn't stick with it, it's like, that's me kind of done with it.
Yeah, that is pretty much it. But I love what it's about, and like you say, I love its wholesomeness. It's almost like, by design, it can't produce any kind of grief or anything like that. In a way that, you know, like you might have like a community around Call of Duty or something like that, and there might be some okay people in there, but then it's also, because of the nature of it, there's always going to be griefers and people who have less than pleasant views, who will make them known verbally online and stuff. Whereas something like this, there's just no room for it, and it just doesn't fit with it at all. Like it almost, it's like I said, I think last time, that it's the kind of game that makes people into better people almost.
Yeah, I will say as well, one of the over my the odyssey that I've been on with my brother Transval over the last since the lockdown started a few months ago, and playing many more games online. One of the things that really drives a spear through the whole thing is the worst aspects of playing games online are just other people. Of all the games we played, every time we come across any other players, it's always the worst aspect of the game.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it can be great, but it can obviously. I mean, I play Left 4 Dead a lot, and that
Yes.
naturally, I mean, it's only 11 years old. But that, and yeah, it's like a mixed bag. Sometimes you get amazing people. Sometimes you just get just horrible racist people. But then, I mean, I know you can say you can block them and all that kind of stuff, but you shouldn't really have to, you know?
It's just putting up with it, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, so that was Animal Crossing. So good,
Well,
but not for me.
that leads. I was going to do this last, but that kind of leads in really nicely. The talk of not a kind of a game that you kind of just turn when you just want to like chill out for a bit. And that for me is, I've realized it's Kingdom Come Deliverance, right?
Right.
So that game is glacial. Like the pacing of the game is absolutely glacial, and it's basically a numbers game where you've got like, you can wear like, I think it's something like 16 different pieces of clothing and armor. Like, it's just so in depth. And but I was playing it, and it reminded me of Boiling Point, where it's kind of like a slightly kind of janky game, but it's needlessly in depth. And I realized that basically what happened was, I think it was yesterday, Sunday, Faye was like, she wasn't feeling well, so she said, I'm gonna have a lie down for a few hours. And I said, I'll come and keep you company, and I'll chuck a game on. And I am a nightmare for like thinking, oh my god, I've got all this time, what shall I do? And then I just flick between games randomly, and then my time is up.
Yeah.
So I said, right, just choose one. So I thought, Kingdom Come Deliverance, I'll play that again. I remember playing it and stopping. I can't remember why, but I'll check it on. So I loaded my save game, and it said,
Really difficult.
You're 69 hours into this game. And I thought, good, yes. And I know I haven't fought the first boss. Yes. Turn it on. And then it turned it on, and I realized that, like, I've been playing this game for 70 hours, and I haven't fought the first boss yet because I just like pissing around too much. Like,
Yeah.
I love finding someone fishing, shooting him and nicking his shoes, then flogging him to his wife. And just... And like just walking along behind people and just shooting them in the head, and then running off from the police and stuff. And it's just like
going up behind someone, shooting them, and running off. You're really playing the hero.
Or like, yeah, it's just something about like going into someone's house, and then they give you a quest, and then you wait for them to go outside, lock them out, and then ransack their house, and then jump out through a window into the woods. And it's so kind of sluggish, and there's so many things to keep track of that I've just realized that that's kind of my zen place. Like, I played it yesterday for about 6 hours, and it felt like 2, because again, it's just, I don't know if I'll ever complete it, because I just think, like, the main boss, the first boss I came up to, like, after 70 hours, was so hard, and I thought, I'm clearly not leveled up enough to take you on, because I'm too busy nicking apples off trees. and I think that's my Animal Crossing. I think Kingdom Come Deliverance, and I know there's a lot of politics behind the developer, but I think I just like pottering around, being a slightly bland-looking man with a Bristol accent. That's what I want.
Really, I don't know why you wouldn't want that.
Yeah. So that's my Animal Crossing, and I think it's going to be a game that I'm going to just keep coming back to for hundreds of hours. Yeah. In a very different way to The Witcher, where
I was going to say, because
I was completely like locked into the narrative and had real emotional investment in the characters. In this, I just like the sheer sense of freedom you've got.
Yeah, that is something about The Witcher actually I noticed, was that because usually with open world games, it's they are by design things where you like there is that scope to mess about and toy with the environment and cause chaos in that way. And it's something I don't know whether you can really do it in The Witcher, but it's something I never even considered really doing. I think that's because the story and the side quest was so kind of like
intricate,
compelling, that, and I was so into it in terms of like being like really committed to that character, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
That it didn't really cross my mind to mess about. I felt much more like I was in a storybook in a way. Whereas
Yeah.
another open world game, like GTA or Breath of the Wild or something like that, it almost like I can lose myself for hours just messing about,
Yes.
doing other stuff. But I think it's probably because of the quality of the storytelling and the writing, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like them both. Like, I would probably put Kingdom Come Deliverance, flawed as it is, probably in like definitely my top like 50 games of all time, because it, I like playing it, and it's a game, and I should like playing it,
That's
regardless of the reasons behind it.
so you
It's
enjoy playing it. It's an interesting
yeah, yeah, and
concept.
I feel like I enjoy playing it for reasons very specific to me. It feels like I'm just a dude, like an absolute no peasant in this world. I'm not a hero, and I'm just going around hassling people. And it reminded me a little bit of in a very very different way, the game Elex, which was made
Right.
by, I think it was made by spiders.
That
But
that was Souls-like, wasn't it?
well, I don't think it was. It was more of an open world sort of thing, and
I
it was
don't mean
much.
that as a dirty word.
Oh, right, yeah, instantly. But no, it was a very flawed game, but because of the dodgy Russian humor in it, and just because of the jankiness, they're kind of things I weirdly enjoy in open world games. So, yeah, Elex is. Did
Which
she
is
be in
why
the
you
top
love
50 as
Dragon's
well?
Dogma so much, I guess.
Yeah, well, I've played through it twice. I was thinking about buying it again on the Switch actually the other day.
Oh my god, that game is defined by jank. It's amazing.
I absolutely love it. I don't know what it is. There's just something about, if I think it's if you can just work outside of what the game actually wants you to do, I just find it inherently funny.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Like enjoying a game in a very specific way that's unique to you. I think that's quite a good way of kind of describing why it is that certain games kind of stay with us and do end up being favorites because they have something personal about them.
Yes,
A
absolutely.
connection. Right. Let's move on then. What's next? Should we talk about Streets of Rage 4?
Yes, please.
Have you played this at
I
all?
I have. I'm kind of holding off playing it because I really want to play it through 4-player co-op. I'm playing it with Faye casually, but I really want to play it 4 players.
I have played this game a lot, and I didn't even think like the first couple of times I played it, I wasn't sure whether I liked it or not. I thought, wow, this is because I played other games similar to it, like
Mother
Mother
Russia
Russia
Bleeds.
Bleeds, yes, which is quite different. And I have popped back to Mother Russia Bleeds since playing this, and it's weird. It feels so different to this because it felt really, really too quick. Because Streets of Rage 4 is actually quite slow in the way that the originals were, really.
Yeah.
And because of course this is the first one for what, 20 something
6
years?
years.
Jeez. Yeah. So yeah, it's I love the art style. I know it's not for everyone, but I love it.
Mhm.
It's kind of like what you imagine they would like the originals to have looked like if it were kind of hand drawn.
Yeah,
Um,
not pixel. Yeah.
yeah. But my problems with it at first were that I thought it's sort of lacks variety. It's a bit short. It's too slavish to its predecessors. But actually, what it's doing is it's really refining the original game's appeal, and I think it's quite clever and quite brave in a way to do that. They haven't chucked in a bunch of like extra modes or whatever, and they haven't just stretched it out with a load of story padding or anything like that.
Well, the thing is as well, with saying like I can understand why some would think, oh, it's a bit too slavish to its predecessors, but then this is a pretty much was a dead genre for a long time. And yes, we've had other ones that have come, but they've always had like a new twist on things, like Mother Russia Bleeds and stuff. And what was that awful game? Something just Rage of Justice, whatever it's called. God, that was terrible. That 32-bit Sega Saturn kind of digital. What was it called? It was awful.
Raging Justice, wasn't it?
Probably Rage and Justice, yeah. But
I'll look on the Wikipedia maybe.
but this was Street Rage 4. I did see people saying things like they wanted it to be like a really souped up thing, maybe using like Sega's like Yakuza engine and getting all this crazy, like bringing it right up to date. But I thought, well, people don't want that from a Streets of Rage game. What? Because people who were a fan of that sort of 2.5D side scrolling brawler, there's relatively slim pickings. You've got stuff like Streets of Red and things like that. But then Streets of Rage was such a specific thing, and because the sort of series had been dormant for so long, I wanted it to be close to the second one, and like you say, the focus on the refinement of like the combo systems and the taking off things like enemies wandering off screen all the time and things like that. Because it is by its very nature like a relatively limited genre. So a lot of the real work has got to go in behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think a lot of I did watch a developer diary thing of it, and they were talking about how they spent a lot of their time, a lot of the first few weeks and months, focusing on the feel of the combat, like to the very, like to the tiniest detail, like down to like the slight kind of pause in the animation when you hit people and stuff like that. It's like, and you can tell when you play the game, it feels like one of the old games, and I really appreciate that, rather than them focusing on expanding it massively and having like an open world or any of that nonsense. Then it's clear that they did spend a lot of time getting the feel of it right. I think the people who worked on it, it was some of the guys who worked on the Monster Boy games, but also there was the people who worked on Streets of Fury, which I've not played, but they're the developer. I think I'm not sure whether Streets of Fury had kind of digitized graphics sort of thing. I'm not sure how well received it was, but anyway, they were working on it, and they've obviously done a good job. I really enjoyed it. I've played through it multiple times now. Like when I first played it, I was playing it on normal, and I thought, how is this even possible? It's so solid. But by the end, once I played through it a few times, I was playing it on not quite the hardest mode. I think second from top difficulty. I played through it several times, and it's good the way that different characters kind of subtly change the difficulty, but probably only because of just what your preference is. That's quite clever, really, because I found that my personal favorite was Adam Hunter, naturally, and he had a quite good dash punch thing. That was very useful. And then I played as like Floyd, the robot cybernetic guy, and I thought that was basically kind of easy mode, really, because he can just smash people and like pick two people up at the same time and that. And then Adam Hunter's daughter, I think, her name's Cherry, anyway.
Yes, yeah.
She I found pretty unplayable, to be honest. So, but like our friend Lee said, she was the one she was the pick for him. So
again, it's that balance of knowing what each player kind of wants, knowing what the play styles are, just from constant research.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's a game that I think people are going to play a lot over the years, because of course there's that whole thing about like the unlockables in it. So there's that reason to keep you coming back. The music is astonishing. It's like it's still good. And I think I've got it, and I played it, and I've got quite far through it, and I stopped because I said I want to really enjoy this game when I'm specifically in the mood for it. I want to kind of savor it. So I'm waiting for that. Like I really want to play like a brawler, and then I'm going to just smash into it.
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I played it to death on Switch, and then I saw it was on Game Pass as well. So obviously I went there for the achievement. Good. No problem with that at all.
The Lizard Cube just can't go wrong with the one. I don't know if you want to talk about the one that ties in nicely to what you're going to say anyway.
Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom.
Yes.
Is that even the title? I wrote that down. I'm just thinking.
I get confused between the Wonder Boy and Monster Boy.
Yes. Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. Yes. I could talk about that a little bit. Have you played this?
Yes. No. Let me just. I played two of these games very close to each other. Is this the one where you can switch it back to the Master System graphics?
I think so. Which one?
You've played it.
I have not switched the graphics yet,
right.
But that's an interesting. They did the Dragon's Trap before this, didn't they? Which was a remake of the Master System game.
Right. That's yes. Okay. Yeah. That yes. Right. I'm with you now. Yeah.
So you've played their previous one, the Dragon's Trap?
Yes, and I've played this one, which was the newer one they made. Yeah,
Yeah, so they're quite different. I mean, Dragon's Trap, that was one obviously that was just pretty much a remake. And
with like
yes, you can
hand-drawn visuals.
definitely
Yeah,
switch the graphics in that. I'm guessing maybe you can't then in Cursed Kingdom because of
no,
course it's
no, and
not
you
a
can't.
remake. So, but yeah, it was really cool actually in Dragon's Trap the way you could switch between the graphics, but also switch between the musics, and you
Yeah.
could do them independently of each other as well, which was pretty cool. That was quite obviously quite stuck in the past in a way because
Oh, it
um,
was very locked down to the gameplay.
yeah,
I did like though how okay it was locked in the gameplay, but the way they did the visuals and the smoothness of them in the updated version, it did make it feel very fresh.
yes.
I did, although the gameplay was locked and kind of the methods in which you like progress in the game, I did think that this actually, if this was released now, I wouldn't think is this a remake
Mm.
unless I'd had knowledge of it. It just feels like a traditional kind of gameplay values.
Yeah, but Monster Bone: The Cursed Kingdom is much more of a I guess sort of Metroidvania-ish type game,
Yes, yeah.
uh, and much more expansive. Um, I haven't played that much of it yet, and I have my issues with it because there are certain quality of life things in this game that annoy me, like with the controls.
Right.
Especially, I'm not sure about the controls generally, but also just like little things like not being able to drop off a ladder, not being able to jump down through platforms. These things are. I've noticed that it's got certain things which you would expect to find in a modern game, which just certain frustrations which still feel like they're stuck in the past. Like there are certain bits where I noticed where like you'd have like a moving platform would kind of come to connect with another platform and you kind of walk across, but there's like a pixel gap in between, your character just falls through, and I'm like, yes, well, that didn't need to happen, did it? Because that is the kind of thing that happened in 1989 and annoyed me then. um but it's sort of unforgivable now. Yeah,
Annoyed
I
in
think
1989.
yeah,
I think
I
that
think my
was before Operation Mindcrime.
I think it was, yeah. My yeah, so I'm not in love with it yet. I'm struggling a bit with it, to be
There,
honest.
there comes a point in that
Mm,
game, Rupert, which
yes.
where I'd been playing it for a while. I think again, I really, really liked it, but I came straight off. I literally played what was the Dragon's Trap, and then played that, and I finished the Dragon's Trap,
All right.
and then I jumped straight into that, and I got to a point, and there's a certain bit I can't. You're up in the clouds towards the end of the game,
Right.
and there was a bit that you die and you go back really far, and I thought,
Yes.
and it was just a step too far. And I've still got it installed because I fully intend to finish it one day.
Mm,
But again, it's one of those games that because you get so used to the controls and the sort of intricacies of it, I'd probably go back now and think, oh, actually, should I just restart it?
yeah.
Because
Yes.
it's again, I just got so many games to get through, but I really enjoyed it up to a point, and there was a point in that game. I can't remember exactly where it was because it was about a year ago, but I did think, oh, I just need a break from this for a bit, and then I just sadly didn't go back to it. But it was amazing. I did like it.
I think it's more kind of it's slower paced than I'm giving it credit for. I think I'm trying to play it much more as a kind of like action platformer type thing, when actually it's almost like every kind of screen or every section is almost like a set of puzzles really. And I don't
Yes.
just mean in terms of like actually working out puzzles, but also in terms of how to get through the screen without taking hits from the enemies and stuff. It's almost like you have to plan ahead. So I think I need to switch my brain to fit the game and stop trying to play it like an action platformer. So at the moment, it's frustrating, but I think I will learn to enjoy it. So I'm on the fence on this one. And I know it's got really good reviews, so like it must be doing something right, and it looks amazing. So
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It feels like one that slipped me. It's happened a few times where you play, well, for me anyway, I play too many games of a similar genre and I kind of just get burned out on them. And I
maybe
think
that's
that's
it. Yeah.
specifically what happened with that. I think I was waiting for it to come out, and then we went to Time Warp Arcade, and for some reason they had like an import copy of it for like 15 quid, and that in Dragon's Trap, but it only just come out, so I kind of bought that, played through it, and then straight away got the other one, and I just burned myself out.
Yes, I think it's one to come back to. Maybe.
So yeah, the next one I've got is one I'm playing at the moment actually with Faye. It's called Red Ace's Wings of the Sky, and it's kind of like a World War One set, like arcade shooter, like sort of just behind the aircraft, very arcade sort of sensibility to it. Because I have this memory of when I was a kid. I don't even know if it was Blue Max or the Red Baron, but there was a point when I was a kid when I loved flight simulators, but with a more arcade bent to them, as opposed to something like really hip steep, stuff like BIP. And I can't remember what, and I always remember thinking, oh, this would be amazing with two players, having the full 3D freedom of the sky. But that kind of never happened for me, mainly because of frame rate issues at the time. And there's been a few times over the years when I've looked at these games that are like the kind of World War One, World War Two kind of era, and that kind of, the what are they called, triplanes and stuff, and they've never grabbed me. But finally, one has. And Red Ace's Wings of the Sky is really cool. It's like a game released. I played it on the Switch, and it's a pretty solid, like 60 FPS. It's a really smooth game. Yeah, even in split screen. And it's kind of, I think, with
it looks tasty.
Yeah,
I'm looking at screenshots, and it's almost like a kind of
cell shaded. Yeah. So I'm playing it with Faye because you can choose to be like like the Allies, or the Germans, effectively the Allied or the Axis, and you've got the sort of the German side. Obviously, you play like Baron von Richthofen and his close crew, and on the other side, you're a team specifically designed to take down the Red Baron. So there's 20 missions, and they're all pretty arcadey. Like there'll be things like, there's 30 enemies, and you just fly around. You've got to take them out. Or there's these balloons that will keep spawning enemies you've got to take out, or there's fuel tankers, or it'll cut to like a top-down view and you've got to drop bombs. But it's all done with this kind of really breezy arcade sensibility. You can't, if you turn out of the like the game zone, it's a pretty large space you have each mission in. But if you fly out of it, you force turn around, and if you can't just crash at the floor because you just sort of dive, raise up sort of thing. But the controls are really saucy, so it's really smooth, and it's a really satisfying like zoom and shoot. The guns overheat. You've got like a barrel roll, and you've got like if you kill a load of people in close succession, you get the next person. Then when they flash with a skull, you can just shoot them with your pistol, and that gives you a nice point bonus, which is just a really cool little cutscene. And you've got a button that kind of charges over like a period of 2 minutes or whatever, and it sends in a squadron of planes to take out one. And it just all feels really fun, like that sense of like the missions are really snappy. And I was playing it, and I thought, God, this is really good fun. And then all of a sudden, boom! I hit a skill wall. And it was like, okay, now take out these armored planes. And I thought, okay. So I was playing it. I think it's mission 8 on each one, because I've done both sides. And I realized, this is actually like quite clever, because you're not just going to breathe through the whole game. What I want you to do is to kind of replay the early missions now that you've got your skills up, get the 3 stars, get more skill points, upgrade your plane, and go through. And it kind of gives it this really nice longevity, because the missions are so snappy. You don't mind doing that.
Okay, that's good. That's good, because obviously we've seen games before where you hit a skill wall and it's a grind then to get back to it. But if you enjoy the process of getting to that point, then why not?
The game is inherently repetitive, because it's just you're a plane and you're shooting another plane. There's only so much that can be done. But because it's so fun and because it's so smooth, and it's just weirdly satisfying, when you've like upgraded your plane a little bit, and okay, you can't do that like 8th, 9th mission, you go back and do the first couple to get this couple of skill points, and you kind of breeze through it and it just feels good. You feel like there's progression. And also it's a really subtle thing. But what I really like about it is there's 2 things I noticed that I thought, that's a really nice little touch that kind of makes the game, is when you're like in a dogfight with another plane, and obviously you can be shot from behind and stuff. When you go through the clouds, and there's like a lot of clouds, when you go through them, your vision is obscured, but as it clears, there's like 3 or 4 seconds when you come out the other side before the HUD comes back on. Right. So there's this, it gives you this awesome sense of kind of, hang on, like, where's he gone? What's happening now? And then after a few seconds, it fades back in. It's a really subtle but really nice touch that has a lot of impact. And the other thing is, when you're playing in split screen, and one of your the other player runs out of fuel, you can fly through rings to get fuel, but if one of them dies, then the screen just fills out to like a full screen
nice.
for the remaining player. So that, which is nice, because obviously you've got a bit more room to play with then, and it does give you like okay, as long as one of you finishes the level, that's fine. So it gives you that extra like
it gives you an edge as well, I suppose.
yeah,
That's
so
nice.
it just feels a really, really tastily designed little game.
Was it 60 FPS like in split screen as well?
I'm pretty sure it is. I didn't really notice any. It's either that or it's like an unbelievably smooth 30. It just felt.
Well, that is the key. I mean, if it can't be 60 FPS, make it a smooth 30, because the worst thing is when there's frame rate hitches and stuff, and that's just the most irritating
and
thing.
in a game like that, it's kind of fast paced. You're aiming at something in the distance. If it judders, it would. I would just be saying, this is.
Hello.
I am here.
Oh, you are everywhere.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah. It does play like fast and loose with the historical context of it, but again, it's an arcade game. No.
Whenever I think of Baron von Richthofen, I just think of Adrian Edmondson in Blackadder.
Yeah. It's very much like a tally ho, boys. Kind of thing. But it's fun. It's kind of larger than life anyway. But and of course, you've got lots of planes you can unlock and different skins for them and stuff. So really cool game.
I might have to check that. That sounds tasty. That sounds like right up my street.
Yeah.
Because I do like a flight sim that makes no attempt to simulate anything. You see what I mean? I don't want to be pressing F2 to open the Bombay doors.
Yeah. I don't want to be pressing Shift and F6 to eat some Bombay potatoes, let alone the doors. So yeah, that was can I quickly, because it flows on really nicely, talk about the next one, which is the most recent game on this list I've played, called Liberated. Have you heard of this?
No. Although clearly I'm going to look it up now.
It is. It's kind of it's a little bit of a jack of all trades in the gameplay department. So it's
very black and white.
Yes, it's almost like a kind of blue. It's so like grey. It's got this kind of like dark blue thing to it. It's presented as like a comic, and there's 4 issues representing 4 chapters of this story, and it's a dystopian future. Mm-hmm. And the good things about it are the story is surprisingly cool. It's very compact, but what it does is each issue tells you a certain person's point of view of this kind of overarching narrative. And it is very clever how it's not cut and dry. It is kind of like, very the very mixed colors and sort of mixed motives and stuff. And I did like that. And it's only about 4 or 5 hours long, the game. And I really like. I'm a big fan of comics, so I really like the presentation. I like the story. The art style is really nice, and the writing is kind of very clipped, very kind of to the point. But like it is in a comic, it's not really verbose. It kind of moves itself forward. And the game is kind of a 2.5D side-scrolling shooter, where you kind of like the remake of Flashback was, where you can aim a full 180. But you're moving left to right, and there's depth in the background.
Like Walker on the Amiga in that regard, really.
Very much like Walker. In fact, it is a remake of Walker. It's called Texas Ranger. So it was the setup is good, and the presentation is good, the story is good, and it's a nice little idea.
I get the feeling there's a butt coming, yeah.
The technical aspects of that game really, really drag it down. Like, the frame rate is never reliable. And even I was aiming, and it felt so kind of. Do you remember? I think we were talking about this. We played a game. What were we playing? I think we played one of the worst games that I've ever played, which was the Zombieland game, and it feels like you're never in control of where you're aiming. Like it's always snapping to something invisible. This was doing that to the point that I paused the game, put down, because I love playing with the Joy-Cons in the cradle. I find it like a really nifty little controller, and I picked up my actual Pro controller. And it was still the same thing, except it was worse, because I thought, well, I know this has got like a bigger area, and it's still, I'm still not happy with my aiming, and the frame rate is really bad. Like you say, it's not just like a lock 30; it kind of was all over the shop, to the point that when I was doing some parts of the game, I couldn't do them, and I thought, why am I suddenly crap at this one bit? And I realized it's just because I couldn't. It was like the game was fighting against me to control it. Yeah. So I had to drop the difficulty for one bit in an elevator part, just because I couldn't do it otherwise.
Just because of the technical issues. Yeah.
Yeah, like
the last game that actually stopped me from playing because of technical issues was Mana Spark,
Yes, yeah. The aiming in that was weird anyway. I
The
thought
weird
it was.
aiming was weird anyway, but then as soon as you get to like, well, just half an hour in, and there's more than three enemies on the screen, then it chugs so bad, and it's like this is just lazy. Because when you were just talking about the flying game, what's it called?
Red
Not
Aces.
Red Aces. Yeah, there's a different game called Rogue Aces, isn't there? So Red Aces, and you look at a game like that, which is pretty and also solid frame rate in split screen as well. So it's like, what is the excuse? There is no excuse.
Yeah. It's and there was a lot of other like technical hitches. Like there was one bit where I was climbing across like a cable, and I just pressed down to drop off it, as I'd done a several other times in the game, and I was like doing this little hop, and I couldn't come off the cable, and I was like, what? And then like there's bits where you're diving, and you've obviously got like a certain amount of air supply to kind of do these platforming, flick the switch to open the door kind of sections. And a couple of times I was drowning because the controls were so sluggish and unresponsive. I couldn't make this swim, and I was like, I feel like the biggest enemy in this game is the control scheme and the frame rate. And it really bothered me because I thought this could be a really neat little game,
Yeah.
and the world it kind of set up, the kind of world building in it through the story, I thought I'd happily like smash. But what they need, and it's all stuff that could be patched out. It really does feel like it could be patched to completion, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
Well, you long for a patch to certain things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still waiting for the patch for Sexy Brutale on Switch. That game, and I know what you mean, because I share that pain of like something which, well, in the case of Sexy Brutale, I know it's a brilliant game because I played it on PC and I know how amazing it is and unique it is. And then so to have a broken version of it is just even more painful. Like, 'cause if it's a bad game with technical issues, then it almost doesn't matter because you wouldn't play it anyway.
Fix this,
But
yeah.
when you know it's good and it's got potential,
It's American Fugitive is the only other time I can think this has happened, is where I thought I really, really want to enjoy this more than you almost just think, oh, just release like another game or like a massive patch, please fix it,
yeah,
because I want to love this and I can't. So
yeah,
but again, all these things I always keep an eye on the developer because hopefully they can learn from it. And I was weird
yeah,
because Nintendo Life gave that game Liberated an 8 out of 10, and
right.
I think when a game is fundamentally dicky on like on a technical aspect, it's hard. It's hard to
Yeah,
recommend it fully.
yeah, I agree. But I think one of the major problems with the Switch eShop and to an extent other stores, console digital stores, is the complete lack of refunds on the eShop, and the difficulty in getting refunds on other platforms means that games like this can come out and there's absolutely no kind of incentive for the developers to or the publishers to demand like a patch for it because they've got the money and people aren't able to talk with their wallets, if you see what I mean. Whereas with Steam, obviously you've got a no nonsense refund. You could tell within 2 hours if it's completely broken, so you'd be able to get a refund, no questions asked. But then of course it's going to affect the developer, and they're going to be like, right, okay, well, people are just returning this because it's a broken thing. But you don't have that recourse with the eShop, and that's a real problem. And I think it's genuinely the reason why.
Do you think that's why a lot of people go Switch exclusives?
Possibly, there could be something to do with that. I don't know whether it's that cynical, but then I do think with something like Sexy Brutale or something like that, what is the incentive for developers to create a patch for that? Because once they've got the money in the bank, they're not gonna have anyone. It's not gonna go away. That number's gonna stay the same. You see what I mean? It's never gonna go down. Whereas on Steam, if it was that broken on Steam, people would buy it, people would return it, and then it would be like, right, okay, now I have to do a patch, send out patch notes and have it on the store page to say, oh, it's now fixed, now the frame rate's fine, etc. And then people would be like, right, well, I enjoyed what I played, and so now I'll re-buy it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I did read about going back to like The Last Sky, which is only 45 minutes, that there's obviously when games are indie games under 2 or 3 hours long and they can be completed and refunded.
right,
But that's a separate issue, really, I suppose.
that is an issue. But you'd hope that people who enjoyed the game. There can't be that many people who would genuinely enjoy like a 2-hour game and then think, oh, let's just get my money back.
Yeah, they've paid like
Hope.
£3 or £4 for.
Yeah.
Like, I'll get that back. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is a genuine problem. I can see why they wouldn't want refunds on the store, because obviously for every game that's sold, Nintendo get a cut. Plus, it brings a lot more people, a lot more developers to the store, because they know that they're guaranteed money if it sells.
Yeah.
There's not going to be that refunding going on. But I genuinely think it's part of the problem with the eShop and other digital stores being awash with nonsense, and nonsense which won't be fixed.
It is turning into it just is turning into the eShop is turning into like a Steam thing now, where you're like, there's no quality control.
No, and I suppose it's not so much of a problem for us because we're going to do our research, or write it for a magazine anyway, sort of thing. But I don't know. I guess that we're not the people who are going to be putting money down based on what we see just advertised on the eShop, if you see what I mean. But there are plenty of people who would and spend the money.
There's no review thing on there.
Nope.
There's no like way to know. It's just like, there it is. Here's a trailer. Do you want it?
It's quite a problem, really, isn't it, when you think about it? The combination of no way of holding these people accountable on any level. So no reviews and no refunds. Pretty harsh. Really. Yeah,
I mean, I've never really been, like you say, because they're like review copies or games I've picked up in sales. I've never been, but yeah, I can imagine that, even if like you have a kid and you accidentally buy something for £40 because you've left it logged in. Yeah. It's like, how are you going to get a refund for it? Yeah, it is dodgy.
I mean, I get that there is the issue of like review bombing and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure, I mean, Steam has come up with pretty intriguing ways of getting around that by, you've got so much control over sorting the reviews. So, for example, you can see the reviews that have been posted in the last 30 days or whatever. So you can see where if it's suddenly plummeted, and there's like it's got like a graph, like a running graph to show the average kind of reviews, whether it's negative or positive sort of thing. And so you can see on that graph at what point those reviews suddenly plummeted because the developer said that they support trans rights or something like that, and then it suddenly plummets, and you're like, well, I don't care about that because these are just assholes.
Nothing to do with the game. Yeah,
it's got nothing to do with the game. So you can ignore them, sort of thing. So there are ways around it. There's pretty powerful ways around it. So there's no excuse, really. And
a company as big as Nintendo, there's no reason not to implement some kind of star review thing,
Well, I think that's how they should do it. I agree that they probably shouldn't have written reviews, because if they want to keep their kind of like safe, wholesome community, then it probably wouldn't be wise. But they can at least.
And also, you haven't got a keyboard, so it would take 1,000 years. Yes. But just a star review thing.
Yeah, have a star review, and you could have it like broken down into like gameplay, graphics, technical, I don't know, whatever, and you could do something along those lines, or literally just a 5-star out of 5 stars sort of thing, and that's it. And then have the ability to search via, like recent reviews or all reviews or whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There should be something, because like the Wii U shop was so desolate. And then to have like the Switch, where it's just, you're just seeing like stuff coming in now. You look at the screenshot and you think, well, that's a mobile port. Just from the screenshot of like a chef jumping over a log.
Yeah.
And you think, I just want some way of some sort of quality control, or some sort of way of sorting this. Because even when you like try to buy a game as well, it's just hard to sift through it.
Yeah.
It does need to be looked at.
Yeah, the curation isn't the best. So yeah. Anyway, so. What's next? What do we talk about next?
I've actually got a load left, but what I'm going to do is just talk about 1, 2, 3 more. Have you got any left, sorry?
Yeah, I've got a couple left. Yeah.
Oh no,
but you crack on.
Okay, yeah. Well, this one is a quick one. It's one I played. It's not actually out till we're doing this on I think it's the 8th today of June, and this isn't out till the 10th of June. So I'm breaking the embargo, but I'm not going to upload this until then, so that's fine. So Isle of Spirits, it's one I actually just sent off the review for today. I played it on the Xbox One, and it's billed as like you're getting this up, I guess, on the screen to have a little goosey.
Isle of Spirit. What's
Yeah, not supermarket aisle, like an aisle as an island. Isle of
Isle of
Spirits.
Spirits? Okay.
Um,
Oh, this looks cutesy.
yes. So it's billed as like
Not expecting it to look like that. This looks like Dragon Quest Builders.
Yes. Well, this is the thing. I was like, yeah, I'll review that. That's like little indie kind of survival, little survival cutesy game, and it builds itself as like a casual survival game. So what the game is that you're a dude, obviously with a full redhead with a massive beard, good, and you kind of wash up on the shore, and the whole point of the game is you've got to build a raft and get off this island. And there are you pot around picking up the usual thing like stones and bits of wood and plants and stuff to make various things, make an axe and a pickaxe, then you can get stone and you can build a little house and stuff. And
Why? Hang on. Why? Because I can see he's building a house in this picture. Why? If he just wants to build a raft, why would he bother going through the effort of building a house?
yeah, I know, of getting planning permission from the local council,
Yeah.
saving up for a mortgage. Yeah. If you washed up with an island and your wife says, right, we have to build a raft, you say, well, first of all, we've got to save up for a mortgage. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, and you need, and you're a contractor. We need to get you some full-time work.
I know, yeah. We're going to do some lying on the applications when we go to Halifax. So I don't know why we're driving to a town in England, but
well,
so you start off on this island and you've got to build a raft. So obviously the first thing you need to do is go to the harbour authority to get planning permission. Yeah, and the you go through, it's very cutesy. And when you open your menu in the game, you can tell that the game is very linear in that you can't, all the things are grayed out that you can build, but they're all things that work towards this raft. Like you have to build a sail, you have to build posts, you have to build items to get other items to build things for this raft to get off. But there's nothing in that inventory or like the list of things you can build that's kind of tertiary, secondary to that. So it's like, okay, this is a game about getting off the island. I'm not going to like build a flower garden stuff because you can't do that. You can't mine, you can't explore the island because there's no secret tunnels or things to collect. It's all about building a raft. So it's like, fine, it's very direct. That's cool.
It seems very strict about that. Yeah, okay.
This is the thing. It's against the casual sensibility of it. So I was walking around picking up sticks, and I touched the coastline, like the water. Boof, drowned. Game over. Start again. And I thought, oh, okay. So go to the water. Right, that's fine. So then I started again, and I was playing it, and I was potting around building stuff, getting a pickaxe and stuff. And you've got these 3 bars, it's like a warmth meter, like an energy tiredness meter, and your hunger. So I was thinking they drain pretty sharpish. So I was like eating food, and then I was like potting around at night. I'd had like a little torch so I could cut down the trees in the dark. And then the moment my torch went out, my health started pounding down. And I said, okay, so there's unseen enemies in the shadows that get me, right? Okay, so I go back to my little house. And when you build a house, by the way, it's 4 walls. It's 4 walls and that's it. So you can't like add anything to it because again, it's all about getting that raft. So I woke up in the morning. Obviously, I was hungry because I'd slept. So it's all about this weird juggling act of these meters that you've got going on, like the survival element and the casual aspect of it. I assume comes from how straightforward and accessible it is. So what happens is you're going through it, and I was at the point of like building up my raft, and I thought, oh my god, I only need one more bit. So I was tired, so I thought, well, I'll kip, and in the morning I can get enough wood. I needed like 15 wood to build this final thing for like the mast, and I could just get off the island. And I was like, oh, I played it for like 3.5 hours, and then I woke up and it was winter, and I was like, right, and it was quite nice. Everything was covered in snow, but of course your warmth meter just drops the second you leave your house. So I got into this weird, tedious thing of like going outside, taking a few steps, building a campfire and standing next to it till my warmth went up, taking a few more steps to the forest and then putting another one down. And then I was cutting down trees. So you cut down a tree, you get 5 wood, but each campfire takes 3 wood. So it's this war of attrition against the elements. And I thought, this isn't fun anymore.
Because that just sounds like balancing numbers. You could play that game on a spreadsheet. Jeez.
Yeah, and I died, and then it went back to the previous because I died. Because when you save, it resets to like the previous morning. It's kind of auto saves every evening. But if you die, it back. You could quit out the game and go back in, but if you die, straight back to the start. And I thought these elements do not dovetail to make like a fun casual game, because I can't pot around, I can't explore. It's all very much like get the raft, get off the island, but there's nothing else to do. So it's just a juggling act of these gauges, and it's very weird, and it doesn't really work.
It sounds quite aggressive in
There is
its gameplay compared with what it looks like.
The presentation of it and how it's, if you read on Steam, it's like, oh, it's casual, you can do all these things, and you're like, everything they list on that Steam page that says you get the whirlwinds come after you, and you get, they actually list every single aspect of the game there, but they make it sound like there's much more to it. Like there was a bit that was quite funny where when it was getting dark and I was walking back to where I assumed my house was on the map, and then I opened the map and I thought, is it moved? And then I closed the map and thought, I must be losing my sense of direction. Opened it and it was further away. And I thought, of course, a whirlwind has lifted my house off out into the ocean. That's what. So that's kind of funny, but that happened like once. But it's not enough to this war of attrition, especially towards the end game, that really wore me down.
That sounds disappointing. Not that I would really had great hopes for it anyway. The game, because as soon as I hear the word survival, it just turns me off. I like Dragon Quest Builders. I don't know
up to a point.
Yeah, up to a point, naturally, until it becomes just a hellish micromanagement game.
Yeah.
But yeah, the survival thing just doesn't float my boat at all, because I think in order for it to be a challenge, it has to be quite aggressive and nasty and brutal and cruel. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a game, if you see what I mean. So it seems weird having I mean, this looks like Rad Rogers or something. Like, yeah. So I won't be playing that.
So yeah, it
looks a bit early access as well, frankly, but
it played okay. There was a few moments when, like, you're walking along and like you would kind of get for a split second getting like caught on some scenery or something. But aside from that, it was pretty smooth and it felt pretty full and completed. But yeah, the problem is, again, it's not like technical issues. It's just the whole design, like, sort of theme of the game they don't mesh. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. What's next? Should I just quickly? Didn't you have a couple more that you wanted to mention?
Well, the thing is, let me just have a quick look. I've got a few on this list, but some of them are heavy duty. Like, one I will say is, because I've wanted to say this for the last 2 weeks since I played it, is I actually really like Rage 2.
I quite like Rage 2.
Oh, did you? In my head, I thought you hated it.
No, I don't hate it. I think it's really quite flawed. I like the combat in it. It's the open world aspect, I think, just doesn't really work that well.
See, I did this thing, so I'll do two more because I've got this, and there's another one with a 2 in it as well. And the other two I was going to mention, I'll leave till next time. But in my head, basically, I'd actually put myself off playing it 'cause it's on Game Pass, because I thought Rupert said this was crap, and that's just stuck in my head. I remember we covered this in like one of the very first State of Plays, and I just had that in my head that you really hated it. So I played it, and I think because I had such low expectations because of what I imagined you once saying, that I was like, I actually quite like this.
Maybe I should just say I hate all games, and then you gotta love them.
I was like, oh my god, everything's amazing.
I think my problem with it was that it was by Avalanche, who of course did Mad Max, which I did enjoy a lot, and then I played this, and it was like a not as good version of it, and I wish it had been different. It was, I remember it being the open world part which bored me. Like, getting between places just wasn't that fun. And then, very tellingly, about halfway through, they give you like a flying machine thing, just to get you places much quicker. Almost like they were playing it, they were testing it themselves, and said, "Oh, it's quite boring getting between places." So, whereas in, of course, Mad Max, it was pretty cool because you would get attacked on the way, and you'd have like this really, really furious battle trying to like knock people off the road, or you'd use your harpoons or whatever, and that was quite fun. But I remember thinking to myself, I really, really like the combat in this game, like going through the little camps and stuff and shoot, and the feel of the combat was really good, and like blowing people up. And it was almost like one of those games where not Just Cause 3, Far Cry 3, where it's one of those games where you clear a camp and you think to yourself, I just want to do that again because I can imagine doing it in a different way, sort of thing. It's one of them.
I really liked it. What I liked about it was like clearing the camps and stuff, and then you're driving through them later on, and you stop, and nothing respawns. So you have an impact on the world, and you see like you drive past something, you think, have I been here? And you look over, and it's just still smoking and smoldering, and you think, yes, I've been there, and I have fired my gun more than twice.
I've made my mark.
So I like that. But what I will say was, it's really lucky that when I play these kind of like these sorts of like open world shooters, is that I don't look for character investment, because every single character in that game is the same person. Everyone is like a bull-headed gung-ho. Yeah, come on, let's do this shit. I eat everyone, and I thought, like, there's no variety in anything at all.
There was a lot of I remember there being a lot of, like, they tried very hard to make a lot of the boss characters kind of wacky, and it was a bit cringeworthy. I found, like, they'd be dressed up really elaborately, but essentially they were the same character each time.
Yeah, well, everyone is the same character, Rupert. So
they'd just be like a kind of circus freak type person, wouldn't they? Just like roll up, we'll see all the freaks.
Yeah. But so the whole like present, like, it was, I really enjoyed the game, but yeah, the whole story, I didn't care about this. Didn't care about the story. I didn't care about any of the people. It was just the combat mechanics. I didn't mind the driving as much. I preferred the driving. I enjoyed the driving more than you did, but yeah, the real meat is just the upgrading the guns and the fun and the movement and the combat, definitely.
Yeah.
So I will say, I think I played it for 10 or 12 hours. I thought, no, do you know what? I might 100% this, and after a while, I thought, no, I won't. There was a point where I just thought, no, I want this to be done now. But I really enjoyed that 10 or 12 hours with it.
Yeah, I think, I'd say it was a good game, but it's just weird the way that it's not as good as a game which was released like 5 years before it.
Yeah,
by the same people.
I think I'm going to stop there, because the other ones I've got, like, there's a couple of online ones which I'll probably play more of, and I'll be able to cover more fully next time anyway.
Okay. Well, I'll mention Bomb Chicken then, because I've had this on my wish list.
You talked about this a few times, and I thought it was a joke.
It does almost feel like a joke, and even when you describe what the game is, it sounds like a joke, because it got good reviews at the time, and it was it's probably 2 or 3 years old now, I guess, but it's sort of like a platform puzzle game where you can't jump because you're this fat chicken, and you lay bombs. So if you stood still and you hit the button like 5 times, then you would create a tower of 5 bombs, and they.
Is this 2D, by the way, or what is it?
Yeah, 2D pixel art side on. Yeah. So you'd create like a stack of 5 bombs, and obviously the first bomb would go off after a few seconds, and then it'd be a chain of bombs. And if you're sat on top, then you're going to die. So it's your way of traversing the world, but it's also your way of like solving puzzles and stuff, because you can do stuff like you can lay a bomb and then boot it along so it slides along the ground and blows stuff up, etc. Which is pretty cool. I do like games which limit themselves, give you a limitation, and then it works with that, if you see what I mean, to make you think in a different way and how to solve puzzles. But my problem with it is that it is a neat idea, but it's just got kind of nowhere to go. It doesn't really use its premise well enough. And basically, it doesn't introduce anything, any extra things throughout the whole game. Because from the very start, you can create a tower of bombs as high as you like, basically,
right.
And you can kick bombs. There's no point at which it like develops something different, like being able to like hurl bombs, or I don't know, or get different types of bombs, anything like that. Being able to say, for example, you could eat something and it would create a different type of bomb, or whatever. Nothing like that. It's all the same all the way through. So it never gives you any other kind of abilities. So all that really happens is it just gets more fiddly as it goes on. And the problem is that when the more fiddly it gets, the more you realize how bad like the collision detection is. I don't like games where the rules aren't clear. if you see what I mean. I mean the kind of systemic rules of it aren't clear. So I was never sure. And I think there are about 30 levels, and I got to about level 25 maybe. So I know that it's not going to change dramatically
Yeah.
by the end. But I don't like it when, like, it's never that clear, like how close you're meant to be to a bomb, to one of your bombs, for it to kind of kill you, because it doesn't have like a very clear kind of blast radius. It's like a bit random all the time about whether you're going to actually die from a certain move you do. And I mean, I know you don't get knocked back too far, but it's just like, it's annoying when you're trying to do something and you can see how to do it, but because of the slightly dodgy collision detection, it's like, okay, well, I did that exactly as I did last time, and it's the outcome's different, you know. So yeah, that's very frustrating. It feels kind of a little bit mobile-y, and I say that because of, and that kind of relates to my first point about it never really developing beyond its initial premise. Like, it feels so simple that it's almost like a kind of game that you would be able to play on mobile, because I don't even know whether
It's
it is
so
on
one-dimensional.
because it's so one-dimensional and it doesn't add anything extra. I always think of that as being mobile games. So yeah, yeah, I was disappointed with that because it's got a really cool art style, and it's definitely got potential, and it is quite like the first few levels. You're like, oh, this is cool. Like, there's some good ideas here, and then you realize they kind of run out of ideas, and it just becomes, fiddly. It becomes. It requires you to have a precision that the game doesn't allow, if you see what I mean. Like, you've got to be, their difficulty is based on the precision, but the game itself isn't precise enough to allow it. And so that was very disappointing.
So again, the biggest enemy in the game is the controls and the design.
Really, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. So that was Bomb Chicken. Disappointing.
Yeah. I gotta be fair, the title didn't. I just thought it was like Bomberman, but you're a chicken instead of an alien. So, I mean, there was the more depth than what I originally envisaged, but yeah, it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it's not worth it. I mean, on the plus side, I think it's discounted quite often, but then I think I'm seeing why now.
You're not going to buy it on another. You're not going to buy it on PC then.
No, I'm not going to buy the big box version,
the limited edition version. I've got a couple more, but I'll leave until next time. I'm otherwise we'll be here for 1,000 years. Have you got any more to?
Only Wild Guns. I was just going to mention.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Because I've been playing that on SNES online, Switch Online, SNES. And this is the Wild West themed kind of. I suppose it's sort of a light gun game in a way, but you're controlling a character as well. It's a really weird. Have you played it?
Yes, I played it after chatting to you for the first. It's difficult, it is, Rupert.
It is challenging. It is very challenging, but thank God for save states. That's what I say. By the end, I was saving it between every time I fired a gun, pretty much. But it's a really weird control scheme, isn't it? Because you're kind of controlling your character at the same time as controlling your.
It's the first time I've seen this is a game called Cabal. In the late 80s in the arcade, and that was the same thing where you kind of control the target in reticule and you hold it down, you move it, but then when you take your finger off it, you move.
Whoa. Yeah. It's I like it. It's quite addictive, and I like its kind of, I could do a little bit better than that kind of hook. And it is difficult, and I imagine if I actually played it on the original SNES, then I'd be sick of it very quickly. But the fact that you can use save states means that you can kind of enjoy the kind of ridiculous character design and stuff like that. And because it's almost got this kind of steampunk thing going on as well. Like, you get these huge robots, like, jumping in, and completely incongruous. But yeah, I did enjoy that. So that's the kind of thing I kind of like to see on the
store,
on the SNES, on the online thing, because I've played the big hitters so many times, but
I know you mean
slightly obscure things
like
that would otherwise
or whatever's on there now, just something a bit different. You're like, oh, that could be like a bit of a hidden gem on the system that I've never. They need to have Cybernator on there, really.
They need to stop messing about, don't they? I think they've already got Parodius, so I know that's not the same thing, but that was one that I was looking out for. Yeah. So oh, and I've just started playing Sonic the Hedgehog as well, the original.
Of course you have. On what? On.
That's on Mega Drive Classic Collection.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good game. That you probably like that, Rupert.
Yeah, it holds up pretty well. Again, save states useful. Actually, be able to collect all the Chaos Emeralds, maybe. So
Oh
that's
god,
good.
yeah, I've never completed. Yeah, that's a good point,
Oh,
actually.
ridiculous. But the one things I would say about Sonic the Hedgehog is it's a game which constantly fights against its whole speed thing, like
Especially in
ridiculous.
Marble Zone.
Yeah, Marble Zone. It's absolute cruel, and basically the slower you go in that game, the better you do. That's simple as that. You've
Yeah.
always got to slow down. It's bizarre, but it's quite fun when you play it that way. So that's fine. And the mini game is the best in the series. The spinning kind of
Sphere, is it with the blue and red? Is that the one?
it's like top down, and you're constantly spinning like a kind of pinball thing, and you're bouncing off stuff. And it feels much more fair than the other ones because, of course, Sonic 2 had that awful half pipe type thing, which is fine if you got two players, but if you got a bot, then you just can't do it. Unfair.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because he just literally tails behind you slightly. So
yeah, so you jump and he just gets hit and he loses rings for you.
And then even if he doesn't, it's off-putting that something's just shadowing you the whole time.
Yeah. And then of course the
Shadow the
third
Hedgehog
third one had that sort of just third person going around the grid.
Yeah, which is Faye's favorite one. She loves that.
I found it punishingly difficult and annoying, but there you go. Yeah, so I'm quite enjoying Sonic the Hedgehog, and of course you've got Starlight Zone, which has got the best music ever.
I'll have to listen to
Except the Robocop Game Boy theme.
An action biker starring Clumsy Colin, sponsored by Skips.
Yeah, so that's everything.
What would you? I'm just looking at the list now I've got here. And what would you say has been your game of the week?
I think Street Fighter 4, just because it's the game I played the most. Certainly, I don't think it's perfect, but it's very good. And the fact that I just keep playing it, and I will play it again, says that it must be pretty good.
See if I don't. Yeah. I think.
Is it Kingdom Come?
No, I do like Kino Kingdom, but I've got to feel because I've kind of covered that before. I'm teasing between. I really enjoyed What the Golf, but Red Ace's Wings of the Sky is good because it's rare for like Faye and I to find like obviously playing Streets of Rage 4, but I didn't expect it to be as good as it is, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to say Red Ace's Wings of the Sky.
Yeah, I'm going to
because that is a game that, like, again, if I finish it now, which I intend to with Faye, and then in a couple of months you come around and say, "Oh, do you fancy blasting it?" Well, yeah, I do. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I'm literally adding that to my wish list right now.
So Red Ace's Wings of the Sky and Streets of Rage 4. I think I would have chosen Streets of Rage 4. I didn't have it on my list, but it's nice to have something different anyway.
Yes. Yeah, because it's the kind of thing that would have flown under my radar. They didn't have radar by then.
I didn't. They just had people shouting at each other saying, "Can you see anything, Dad?" Regardless of if they're related or not. Yeah. So, yeah, have you got anything you're going to play between now and the next one in a couple of weeks?
I would think I'll play something. I'm getting quite into. I'm eyeing up stuff on Game Pass at the moment because there's some good stuff on there. What did I download the other day? I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 is on there. Do I give that another go?
This is the one I'm playing online with my brother, and I wanted to spend more time with it before I made my decision. So that one. The other one I covered today was Crackdown 3 and Payday 2.
Yeah.
But I'll talk about those next time because they're like slightly longer conversations.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'll have a look. I've downloaded loads of stuff on Game Pass, so I'm just going to work through it. I think a lot of the stuff is stuff that's on Switch as well, so I'm kind of testing it out, see if I will fancy it on Switch. So
I love that you just buy things on multiple platforms digitally.
Yeah.
I love it. One of the things I'm going to do as well is download Antstream. You should try it as well because it's a free 7-day trial, and we can just maybe next time discuss what we think about it.
Yes, whether it works. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I'm going to give that a go. What's it called? Cool. Antstream. Antstream. Yeah,
I'm assuming there's some sort of pun in there that I don't fully understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not getting that at the moment.
Unless it's developed by someone called Anthony Stream.
It's quite unlikely, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Cool. Well, obviously, I love you very deeply. And until the next time, get those thumbs twiddling.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye-bye.